Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Welcome back, dear stalwarts. We're continuing reading in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're at Madhya Lila chapter 16, the Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan, and we're taking up at text 65. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "You can perform a task that even I cannot do, but for you, I cannot find anyone in Gaudadesh who can fulfill my mission there." Purport: Lord Chaitanya's mission is to deliver the fallen souls of this age. In this age of Kali, practically 10% of the population has fallen. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu certainly delivered many fallen souls, but his disciples mainly came from the upper classes. For example, he delivered Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and many others who were socially elevated but fallen from the spiritual point of view. Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis were situated in government service, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the topmost scholar in India. Similarly, Prakashananda Saraswati was a leader of many thousands of Mayavadi sannyasis. It was Srila Nityananda Prabhu, however, who delivered persons like Jagai and Madhya. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya says, "Amara dushkara karma toma hoite hoy." Jagai and Madhya were delivered solely by Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. When they injured Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya became angry and decided to kill them with his Sudarshana Chakra. But Nityananda Prabhu saved them from the Lord's wrath and delivered them. In the incarnation of Gaur Nitai, the Lord is not supposed to kill demons, but is supposed to deliver them by preaching Krishna consciousness. In the case of Jagai and Madhya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so angry that he would have immediately killed them. But Nityananda Prabhu was so kind that he not only saved them from death, but elevated them to the transcendental position. Thus, what was not possible for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was carried out by Nityananda Prabhu. Similarly, if one is true to Gaur Nitai's service in the disciplic succession, he can even excel Nityananda Prabhu's service. That is the process of disciplic succession. Nityananda Prabhu delivered Jagai and Madhya, but a servant of Nityananda Prabhu, by his grace, can deliver many thousands of Jagais and Madhyas. That is the special benediction of the disciplic succession. One who is situated in the disciplic succession can understand by the results of his activities. This is always true as far as the activities of the Lord and his devotees are concerned. Therefore, Lord Shiva says, "Aradhananam sarvesham, Vishnor aradhanam param, tasmat parataram devi, tadyanam samarchanam." Of all types of worship, worship of Lord Vishnu is best, and better than the worship of Lord Vishnu is the worship of his devotee, the Vaishnava. Padma Purana. By the grace of Vishnu, a Vaishnava can render better service than Vishnu. That is the special prerogative of a Vaishnava. The Lord actually wants to see his servants work more gloriously than himself. For instance, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Sri Krishna provoked Arjuna to fight because all the warriors on the battlefield were to die by Krishna's plan. Krishna himself did not want to take credit. Rather, he wanted Arjuna to take credit. Therefore, he asked him to fight and win fame. Tasmat tvam utishta yasho labasva jidvashatrum bhukshve rajam samriddham mayai vate nihata purvameva nimittimatram bhava savyasachin. Therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives credit to a devotee who performs any heavy task perfectly. Hanumanji or Brajangraji, the servant of Lord Ramachandra, serves as another example. It was Hanumanji who jumped over the sea in one leap and reached the shore of Lanka from the shore of Bharatvarsha. When Lord Ramachandra chose to go there, he paved the way with stones, although by his will the stones were able to float on the sea. If we simply follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions and follow in the footsteps of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, this Krishna consciousness movement can advance, and even more difficult tasks can be performed by the preachers remaining faithful to the service of the Lord. Text 66. Nityananda Prabhu replied, "O Lord, you are the life and I am the body. There is no difference between the body and the life itself. But life is more important than the body. By your inconceivable energy, you can do whatever you like, and whatever you make me do, I do without restriction." Purport as stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Teni Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Lord Brahma is the first living creature within the universe, and he is also the creator of this universe. How is this possible? Although he is the first living entity, Lord Brahma is not in the category of Vishnu Tattva. Rather, he is part of the Jiva Tattva. Nonetheless, by the grace of the Lord, who instructed him through the heart, Teni Brahma Hridaya, Lord Brahma could create a huge universe. Those who are actually pure devotees of the Lord are instructed by the Lord through the heart, where the Lord is always situated. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridaya arjuna tishtati. If he follows the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity, even though an insignificant creature, can perform the most wonderful tasks by the Lord's grace. Lord Krishna confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhiyogam tam jenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Everything is possible for a pure devotee because he acts under the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Through his inconceivable energy, a pure devotee can perform tasks that are supposed to be very, very difficult. He can perform tasks not even previously performed by the Lord himself. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu told Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jai Karaha She Kari Nahik Niyama. I do not know by what regulative principle I am carrying out this wonderful work, but I know for certain that I will do whatever you desire. Although the Lord wants to give all credit to his devotee, the devotee himself never takes credit, for he acts only under the Lord's direction. Consequently, all credit goes to the Lord. This is the nature of the relationship between the Lord and his devotee. The Lord wants to give all credit to his servant, but the servant does not take any credit, for he knows that everything is carried out by the Lord. 68. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Nityananda Prabhu and bade him farewell. He then bade farewell to all the other devotees. As in the previous year, one of the inhabitants of Kulina Gram submitted a petition to the Lord saying, "My Lord, kindly tell me what my duty is and how I should execute it." The Lord replied, "You should engage yourself in the service of the servants of Krishna and always chant the holy name of Krishna. If you do these two things, you will very soon attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet." The inhabitant of Kulina Gram said, "Please let me know who is actually a Vaishnava and what his symptoms are." Understanding his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and gave the following reply. A person who is always chanting the holy name of the Lord is to be considered a first-class Vaishnava, and your duty is to serve his lotus feet. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that any Vaishnava who is constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord should be considered to have attained the second platform of Vaishnavism. Such a devotee is superior to a neophyte Vaishnava who has just learned to chant the holy name of the Lord. A neophyte devotee simply tries to chant the holy name, whereas the advanced devotee is accustomed to chanting and takes pleasure in it. Such an advanced devotee is called a Madhyama Bhagavata, which indicates that he has attained the intermediate stage between the neophyte and the perfect devotee. Generally, a devotee in the intermediate stage becomes a preacher. A neophyte devotee or an ordinary person should worship the Madhyama Bhagavat, who is a via medium. In his Upadeshamrita 5, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Pranati Bhishcha Bhajantam Isham. This means that Madhyama Adhikari devotees should exchange obeisances between themselves. The word nirantara, meaning without cessation, continuously, constantly, is very important in this verse. The word antara means interval. If one has desires other than a desire to perform devotional service, in other words, if one sometimes engages in devotional service and sometimes strives for sense gratification, his service will be interrupted. A pure devotee, therefore, should have no desire other than to serve Krishna. He should be above fruitive activity and speculative knowledge. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma niravritam anakulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. This is the platform of pure devotional service. One should not be motivated by fruitive activity or mental speculation, but should simply serve Krishna favorably. This is first-class devotion. Another meaning of antara is this body. The body is an impediment to self-realization because it is always engaged in sense gratification. Similarly, antara means money. If money is not used in Krishna's service, it is also an impediment. Antara also means janata, people in general. The association of ordinary persons may destroy the principles of devotional service. Similarly, antara may mean greed. Greed to acquire more money or enjoy more sense gratification. Finally, the word antara may also mean atheistic ideas, by which one considers the temple deity to be made of stone, wood, or gold. All of these are impediments. The deity in the temple is not material. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Similarly, considering the spiritual master as an ordinary human being, Gurushu Naramati, is also an impediment. Nor should one consider a Vaishnava a member of a particular caste or nation. Nor should a Vaishnava be considered material. Charnamrita should not be considered ordinary drinking water. And the holy name of the Lord should not be considered an ordinary sound vibration. Nor should one look on Krishna as an ordinary human being, for he is the origin of all Vishnu tattvas. Nor should one regard the Supreme Lord as a demigod. Intermingling the spiritual with the material causes one to look on transcendence as material and the mundane as spiritual. This is all due to a poor fund of knowledge. One should not consider Lord Vishnu and things related to him as being different. All this is offensive. In the Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami writes, quote, in the verse beginning with Naimaikam Yasya, we find the word Pashanda, godlessness. The word literally indicates misuse of one's body or property. But in that verse it implies the 10 offenses against the Lord's holy name, since each of these leads to such godless behavior. The Mayavadis look on Vishnu and Vaishnavas imperfectly due to their poor fund of knowledge, and this is condemned. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.246, the intermediate Vaishnava is described as follows: Ishvare tadadineshu valisheshu dvasakshu cha prema maitri kupopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. The intermediate Vaishnava has to love God, make friends with the devotees, instruct the innocent, and reject jealous people. These are the 4 functions of the Vaishnava in the intermediate stage. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Sanatana Goswami is taught Shraddhavan Janhai Bhakti Adhikari Uttam Madham Konishta Shraddha Anusari. One who is faithful is a proper candidate for devotional service. In terms of one's degree of faith in devotional service, one is first class, second class, or neophyte. Vaishnav. Shastra yukti nahi jane, drida shraddhavan, madhyamadhikari she mahabhagyavan. One who has attained the intermediate stage is not very advanced in shastric knowledge, but he has firm faith in the Lord. Such a person is very fortunate to be situated on the intermediate platform. Rati prema tarattamai bhakta tarattama. Attraction and love for God are the ultimate goal of devotional service. The degrees of such attraction and love distinguish the different stages of devotion: neophyte, intermediate, and perfectional. An intermediate devotee is greatly attracted to chanting the holy name, and by chanting he is elevated to the platform of love. If one chants the holy name of the Lord with great attachment, he can understand his position as an eternal servant of the spiritual master, other Vaishnavas, and Krishna himself. Thus the intermediate Vaishnav considers himself Krishna Das, Krishna's servant. He therefore preaches Krishna consciousness to innocent neophytes and stresses the importance of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. An intermediate devotee can identify the non-devotee or motivated devotee. The motivated devotee or the non-devotee are on the material platform, and they are called prakrita. The intermediate devotee does not mix with such materialistic people. However, he understands that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything related to him are on the same transcendental platform. Actually, none of them are mundane. Who said, You going to explain that? Why did you say, You had turned that on, please.
Yeah. I like the last point Prabhupada mentioned, that the intimate devotees does not mix with such materialistic people. And because I was just reflecting on some...
Why did you like it?
Because I would love to be like those devotees.
Because you would like to be like those devotees who don't mix with people. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. You see the difference, right? That's important. Vidyam cha yas tad vedo vayam saha avidyayam ratum tirtva vidyayam ratum ashnute. Only one who can cultivate nescience and transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Text 73. The following year, the inhabitants of Kulinagram again asked the Lord the same question. Hearing this question, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again taught them about the different types of Vaishnavas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, a first-class Vaishnav is he whose very presence makes others chant the holy name of Krishna. So the first year, it was anyone who says Hare Krishna. Second year was someone who's constantly chanting Hare Krishna. And this is the third year, they asked again the same question. He said, one upon whom when one sees that person, the seer begins to chant Hare Krishna because of the influence of the first-class Vaishnava. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if an observer immediately remembers the holy name of Krishna upon seeing a Vaishnava, that Vaishnava should be considered a Mahabhagavata, a first-class devotee. Such a Vaishnava is always aware of his Krishna-conscious duty, and he is enlightened in self-realization. He is always in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and this love is without adulteration. Because of this love, he is always awake to transcendental realization. Because he knows that Krishna consciousness is the basis of knowledge and action, he sees everything as being connected with Krishna. Such a person is able to chant the holy name of Krishna perfectly. Such a Mahabhagavata Vaishnava has the transcendental eyes to see who is sleeping under the spell of Maya, and he engages himself in awakening sleeping conditioned souls, sleeping conditioned beings, by spreading the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. He opens eyes that are closed by forgetfulness of Krishna. Thus the living entity is liberated from the dullness of material energy and is engaged fully in the service of the Lord. The Madhyama Adhikari Vaishnava can awaken others to Krishna consciousness and engage them in duties whereby they can advance. It is therefore said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya, chapter 6, Lohake javat sparshi hema nahi kare, tavat sparsha mani keha, shinite na pare. One cannot understand the value of touchstone. Can you mark that one, please? One cannot understand the value of touchstone until it turns iron into gold. One should judge by action, not by promises. I love that statement. A Mahabhagavata can turn a living entity from abominable life, material life, into the Lord's service. This is the test of a Mahabhagavata. Although preaching is not meant for a Mahabhagavata can descend to the platform of Madhyama Bhagavata just to convert others to Vaishnavism. Actually, a Mahabhagavata is fit to spread Krishna consciousness, but he does not distinguish where Krishna consciousness should be spread from where it should not. He thinks that everyone is competent to accept Krishna consciousness if the chance is provided. A neophyte and an intermediate devotee should always be eager to hear the Mahabhagavata and serve him in every respect. The neophyte and intermediate devotees can gradually rise to the platform of Uttama Adhikari and become first-class devotees. Symptoms of a first-class devotee are given in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.245. Sarva bhuteshu pashyad bhagavad bhavam atmanaha bhutani bhagavatyatmani esha bhagavatotamaha. The most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. When teaching Sanatana Goswami, the Lord further said, Shastra yukte sunipuna dhrita shraddha jar uttam adhikari se tarai sangsar. One who is expert in the Vedic literature and has full faith in the Supreme Lord is an Uttama Adhikari. A first-class Vaishnava, a topmost Vaishnava who can deliver the whole world and turn everyone to Krishna consciousness. With great love and affection, the Mahabhagavata observes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, devotional service, and the devotee. He observes nothing beyond Krishna, Krishna consciousness, and Krishna's devotees. The Mahabhagavata knows that everyone is engaged in the Lord's service in different ways. He therefore descends to the middle platform to elevate everyone to Krishna conscious, to the Krishna conscious position. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught the distinctions between different types of Vaishnavas, the Vaishnav, Vaishnavatara, and Vaishnavatama. He thus successively explained all the symptoms of a Vaishnav to the inhabitants of Kulinagram. Finally, all the Vaishnavas returned to Bengal, but that year Pundarik Vidyanidhi remained at Jagannath Puri. Swarup Damodar Goswami and Pundarik Vidyanidhi had a friendly, intimate relationship. And as far as discussing topics about Krishna, they were situated on the same platform. Pundarik Vidyanidhi initiated Gadadhar Pandit for the second time, and on the day of Odana Shasti, Pundarik Vidyanidhi saw the festival. Purport. At the beginning of winter, there is a ceremony known as Odana Shasti. This ceremony indicates that from that day forward, a winter covering should be given to Lord Jagannath. That covering is directly purchased from a weaver. According to the Archana Marg, a cloth should first be washed to remove all the starch, and then it can be used to cover the Lord. Pundarik Vidyanini saw that the priest neglected to wash the cloth before covering the Lord Jagannath. Since he wanted to find some fault in the devotees, he became indignant. What is the meaning and etymology of indignant? It's an adjective that describes a feeling of anger or annoyance at something perceived as unfair, unjust, or offensive. It's not just being angry, it's a moral kind of anger, a sense that something violates what is right. Feeling or showing anger because of unfair treatment, insult, or injustice. Tone, it often suggests a dignified or righteous anger, not a petty outburst. Etymology, Latin roots, from indignare, meaning to deem unworthy, to be offended by, derived from in, not, and dignus, worthy. Literally, not worthy, feeling something is unworthy or improper. Middle English adoption entered into English of the 14th century through Old French, indignant. By then it already carried the sense of resentful because of a wrong or indignity. Related words, dignity, from the same root, indignity, indignation. In summary, it means angered at something unjust or unworthy. It comes from Latin indignare, rooted in the idea of not worthy. Would you like to hear where it's used in Chaucer or Shakespeare? Yes. Not right now? Okay. All right. Yeah, just the right word, because the reason I thought of it was I was describing that pastime just an hour ago, and looking for the right word is just such a nice word, isn't it? He became indignant, because he's a Paramahamsa, so that there has to be a refined word for the way he felt. It can't just be, he became angry or annoyed or whatever. It's not worthy of his stature. When Pundarik Vidyanidhi saw that Lord Jagannath was given a starched garment, he became a little hateful. In this way, his mind was polluted. That night, the brothers, Lord Jagannath and Balaram, came to Pundarik Vidyanidhi and, smiling, began to slap him. Although his cheeks were swollen from the slapping, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was very happy within. This incident has been elaborately described by Thakur Vṛindavana-2. Every year the devotees of Bengal would come and stay with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the Rath Yatra festival. Whatever happened during those years that is worth noting shall be described later. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed 4 years. He spent the first 2 years on his tour in South India. The other 2 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Vrindavan, but he could not leave Jagannath Puri because of Ramananda Roy's tricks. During the 5th year, the devotees from Bengal came to see the Rath Yatra festival. After seeing it, they did not stay but returned to Bengal. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed a proposal before Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy. He embraced them and spoke sweet words. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My desire to go to Vrindavan has very much increased. Because of your tricks, I have not been able to go there for the past 2 years. This time I must go. Will you please give me permission? Save for you too, I have no other resort. In Bengal I have 2 shelters, my mother and the river Ganges. Both of them are very merciful. I shall go to Vrindavan through Bengal and see both my mother and the river Ganges. Now would you two be pleased to give me permission?" When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy heard these words, they began to consider that it was not at all good that they had played so many tricks on the Lord. They both said, "Now that the rainy season is here, it will be difficult for you to travel. It is better to wait for Vijaya Dashami before departing for Vrindavan." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to thus receive their permission. He waited until the rainy season passed, and when the day of Vijaya Dashami arrived, he departed for Vrindavan. The Lord collected whatever remnants of food were left by Lord Jagannath. He also took remnants of the Lord's Kadara ointment, sandalwood, and ropes with him. After taking Lord Jagannath's permission early in the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed, and all the devotees of Orissa began following him. With great care, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forbade the Orissan devotees to follow him. Then, accompanied by his personal associates, he went to Bhavanipur. One goes through Bhavanipur before reaching a well-known place named Janakadepura, or Janaki Devi Pura. After Lord Chaitanya reached Bhavanipur, Ramananda Roy arrived on his palanquin, and Vaninath Roy had a large quantity of prasadam sent by the Lord. After taking prasadam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained there for the night. Early the next morning he began walking and finally reached Bhuvaneshwar. After reaching the city of Katak, he saw the temple of Gopal, and a Brahmanan there named Swapneshwara invited the Lord to eat. There's the Lord of Dreams, Swapneshwara, right? Yeah. Ramananda Roy invited all the others for their meals, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his resting place in a garden outside the temple. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking rest beneath a bakula tree, Ramananda Roy immediately went to Maharaj Prataparudra. The king was very happy to hear the news, and he hastily went there. Upon seeing the Lord, he fell flat to offer him obeisances. Being overwhelmed with love, the king again and again got up and fell down. When he offered prayers, his whole body shivered, and tears fell from his eyes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to see the devotion of the king, and he therefore stood up and embraced him. When the Lord embraced the king again and again offered prayers and obeisances. In this way, the Lord's mercy brought tears from the king, and the Lord's body was bathed with these tears. Finally, Ramananda Roy pacified the king and made him sit down. The Lord bestowed mercy upon him through his body-minded words. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed such mercy to the king that from that day on, the Lord became known as Prataparudra Santrata, the deliverer of Maharaj Prataparudra. All the governmental officers also paid their respects to the Lord. Maybe you may bring it down a tick or two because we're almost entering winter. All the governmental officers also paid their respects to the Lord. And finally the king and his men were bade farewell by the son of Mother Shachi. The king then went outside and had orders written down and sent to the government servants within his kingdom. His orders read, in every village you should construct new residences, and in 5 or 7 new houses you should store all kinds of food. You should personally take the Lord to these newly constructed houses. Day and night you should engage in his service with a stick in your hands. The king ordered 2 respectable officers named Harichandana and Mardaraj to do whatever was necessary to carry out these orders. The king also ordered them to maintain a new boat on the banks of the river, and wherever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his bath or crossed to the other side of the river, they should establish a memorial column and make that place a great place of pilgrimage. Indeed, said the king, I will take my bath there, and let me also die there. The king continued, at Chaturdwar, please construct new residential quarters. Now, Ramananda, you can return to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the king heard that the Lord was leaving that evening, he immediately made arrangements for some elephants with small tents on their backs to be brought there. Then all the ladies of the palace got on the elephants. All these ladies went to the road the Lord was taking and remained there in a line. That evening the Lord departed with his devotees. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the bank of the river Chitrotpala to take his bath, all the queens and ladies of the palace offered their obeisances to him. Upon seeing the Lord, they all felt themselves overwhelmed with love of Godhead, and tears pouring from their eyes, they began to chant the holy names, Krishna, Krishna. There is no one as merciful as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within all the three worlds. Simply by seeing him from a distance, one is overwhelmed with love of Godhead. The Lord then got into a new boat and crossed the river. Walking in the full moonlight, he finally reached the town known as Chaturdwar. The Lord spent the night there, and in the morning took his bath. At that time, remnants of Lord Jagannath's food arrived. Following the king's order, the superintendent of the temple sent large quantities of prasadam every day, and it was carried by many persons. After accepting the prasadam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up and started to go, chanting the holy names. Hare, Hare! Ramananda Roy, Mardardraj, and Sri Harichandana always went with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and rendered various services. Paramananda Puri Goswami, Swarup Damodar, Jagannananda, Mukunda, Govinda, Kashishwar, Haridas Thakur, Vikreshwar Pandit, Gopinath Acharya, Damodar Pandit, Ramai, Nandai, and many other devotees accompanied the Lord. I have mentioned only the chief devotees. No one can describe the total number. When Gadadhar Pandit started to go with the Lord, he was forbidden to come and was asked not to give up the vow of Kshetra Sannyas. When one takes Kshetra Sannyas, he leaves his household life and goes to a place of pilgrimage devoted to Lord Vishnu. Such places include Purushottam, Navadvip Dham, and Mathura Dham. The Kshetra Sannyasi lives in these places alone or with his family. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur considers Kshetra Sannyas to be the preferable Vanaprastha situation in this age of Kali. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya lived in this way, and he has been called a Kshetra Sannyasi, that is, a sannyasi living in Jagannath Puri. When he was requested to return to Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit told the Lord, "Wherever you are staying is Jagannath Puri. Let my so-called Kshetra Sannyas go to hell." When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Gadadhar Pandit to remain at Jagannath Puri and engage in Gopinath's service, Gadadhar Pandit replied, "One renders service to Gopinath 1,000,000 times simply by seeing your lotus feet." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, "If you abandon his service, it will be my fault. It is better that you remain here and render service. That will be my satisfaction." The Pandit replied, "Do not worry. All the fault will be on my head. I shall not accompany you, but shall go alone. I shall go see Shachi Mata, but I shall not go for your sake. I shall be responsible for the abandoning of my vow and service to Gopinath." Thus Gadadhar Pandit Goswami traveled alone, but when they all arrived at Kathak, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him, and he went into the Lord's company. No one can understand the loving intimacy between Gadadhar Pandit and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhar Pandit gave up his vow and service to Gopinath just as one gives up a piece of straw. Just to get Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association, Gadadhar Pandit gave up his life's vow to engage in Gopinath's service. This kind of loving affection can be understood only by very confidential devotees. Ordinarily, no one can understand its purport. Gadadhar Pandit's behavior was very pleasing to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart. Nevertheless, the Lord took his hand and spoke to him, displaying the anger of love. "You have abandoned Gopinath's service and broken your vow to live in Puri. All that is now complete because you have come so far. Your wanting to go with me is simply a desire for sense gratification. In this way, you are breaking two religious principles, and because of this, I am very unhappy. If you want my happiness, please return to Nilachala. You will simply condemn me if you say any more about this matter." Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got into a boat and Gadadhar Pandit immediately fell down unconscious. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to take Gadadhar Pandit with him. The Bhattacharya told Gadadhar Pandit, "Get up, such are the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You should know that the Lord Krishna himself violated his own promise just to keep the promise of grandfather Bhishma. Intending to make my promise true, Lord Krishna broke his own promise not to take up a weapon at Kurukshetra. With his outer garment falling off, Lord Sri Krishna jumped from his chariot, picked up a wheel, and came running at me to kill me. Indeed, he rushed at me like a lion raging, going to kill an elephant, and he caused the whole earth to tremble." Lord Krishna promised not to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra or even take up a weapon. But when Bhishma wanted to keep his own promise, to break the promise of the Lord immediately got down from the chariot. And to make Bhishma's promise true, he picked up a chariot wheel and rushed forward to kill him. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1937. Similarly, tolerating separation from you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has protected your vow with great endeavor. In this way, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya revived Gadadhar Pandit. Then both of them, very much grief-stricken, returned to Jagannath Puri, Nilachala. All the devotees would abandon all kinds of duties for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sake. Yet the Lord did not like the devotees giving up their prescribed duties. All these are the misgivings of loving affairs. Whoever listens to these incidents gets the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet very soon. Okay, take a few reflections or questions. Yes, Devavrata Prabhu.
There was something which came up in relationship to this verse, Anyabhilasha Sunyam, in the discussions with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the residents of Sri Khanda. And the thought had been on my mind since our discussion the other day about Srila Prabhupada's servants, saying how that intensity of service was very difficult. But my thought is that level of intensity is ultimately what we're aiming for to come to. So how can we understand where we are now, where we may not be able to handle that level of intensity, but simultaneously remain enthusiastic to ultimately engage in that standard of service? Because you were saying that many of the devotees, they found it extremely difficult, one of the hardest periods of their life.
Well, what a nice question. Thank you. Krishna's expert in encouraging. That's the admonition or the statement in the Gayatri Mantras, prachodayat. He knows how to enthuse the devotees. And tesham satata yuktanam. That he's within the heart. And for those who are a little enthusiastic or slightly inclined, he gives that encouragement. It's not just knowledge, but encouragement, how to come to him. So for devotees, for instance, Narada, as a child, he gave an experience whereby he could understand what was coming. And that gave him the staying power for a whole lifetime of dedication to his service to the Lord. And for devotees in general, they find that at intervals, even in the practice of Vaidhi, they get these inspirations. For instance, devotees might serve all day long at a Janmashtami festival and fast and do nothing else but hear and chant. And at the end of the day, they think, when can we do this again? Or we may chant the whole Bhagavad Gita together on Gita Jayanti. I've yet to find anyone who came back and said, it's too much. On the contrary, everyone even calls up or writes an email and say, could we do this every week? Or could we do it every day? And as I've noted on Govardhana Parikrama, I used to watch people doing Dandavat Parikrams. So I've never seen anybody feel unhappy or look unhappy Whereas if you go downtown New York City or any other place in the world, even Disneyland, everybody is unhappy. So there's a kind of natural inspiration devotees get just from the practice itself. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. And they have an idea, they have a taste that I know it's there at other intervals, because as per the verse, Jata Shraddha Makatasu Nirvina Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukkha Makam Kamams Parityagi Pyanishvara. They're in an interim period, so they can't do it all the time, but at least they know that's what it is. That's what we want. So the devotees, encouraged by those experiences, they soldier on in the times when they don't have a full taste. Yes, Prabhu?
I'm just trying to understand that if one is in the service of Srila Prabhupada, in the service of the spiritual master, and that's the direct connection with that full engagement, but then devotees are saying that it's difficult to keep pace with it, wouldn't that be discouraging?
They were kids, and they were fresh off the street, and they were with the Paramahamsa, who is in the final chapter of his Leela, doing full service 24 hours a day without sleeping. So there's a little bit of a mismatch. If you had nowadays, and then we find that those who have given a lifetime of service, they're following in the footsteps of Prabhupada in the tireless ways they do service. And others who are just beginning, they might feel like, how is somebody able to do something like that? But they're able to do it by a lifetime of service, and maturity sneaks up on people. If you hang around long enough and keep showing up for your service, you might look down one day and say, what happened to me? Maybe I kind of like this, like 24-hour a day thing. And that's Krishna's mercy. So, yeah, a little out of context for the overall experience, because those were young people just fresh off the street, senses still buzzing, and meeting Prabhupada, who then took them in his loving embrace. But he also knew they had the potential, because they're rare souls. But he showed them the other side too. He also let them know, because then when one of my godbrothers just told me how Prabhupada, just like you break a horse, you know what it means, breaking a horse? Outside people's party is frozen. Did you know that? It means that when you're taming a horse, there's a certain time at which there's a shift. The horse is independent. It wants to be free. But the person gradually teaches the horse that no, I'm going to be your master. I'm going to ride you, and you do what I'm going to say. And at a certain point, the horse gives into that. It switches over and says, okay, do whatever you like. I'll take you wherever you want to go. And that's called breaking the horse, because at that time the horse comes into submission. So one of my godbrothers was telling about how he was serving Prabhupada all day long, and then he took rest after a really long day, and Prabhupada woke him up in the middle of the night as Prabhupada was translating and commentating. And then when he came in Prabhupada's room, Prabhupada said, what are you doing? He said, I'm sleeping. Taking rest, Prabhupada. He said, why are you taking rest? Because Prabhupada was now awake, and he was showing the contrast. He said, I'm tired. And he said, why are you tired? He said, because I'm a conditioned soul. He said, why are you conditioned soul? And he said he was so overwhelmed by that, the disciple. Just, he broke. He said, he is a tough character, still is. And he said he just started weeping. And Prabhupada called him over and put his head on his lap and stroked his head. But when he went back, he saw the contrast, said, here's where I am, here's where Prabhupada is. And it wasn't that he was trying to condescend, but he was trying to show him that you've got a ways to go, and this is what you can be, but don't think you're there yet. Yeah, you're welcome.
I was just struck by the description of this intense love the devotees have, and in different ways it manifests, and there's so many elements in the culture we can learn, like Mahaprabhu taking care personally of devotees, every time sending to, greet them, and then sending them, embracing them, giving advice. And when the women, the wives of the Vaishnavas came, also Vṛindavana-2 explains a little more in detail. They were seeing him from a distance, crying, and he says, Lord Chaitanya considered that their love and devotion and knowledge is the same as their husbands. And then telling Nityananda Prabhu, you should not come back. And Nityananda Prabhu, yes, you are my life. But then he comes back. And his excuse is, well, I heard that there's a wonderful deity, Gopinath, I'm bringing him rice from Bengal. And Gadadhar here, you go, I'm going myself to see such a matter. It's not because of you. So these exchanges are just so touching. And my question here is about Prabhupada saying about the devotee is always in love. And therefore is always conscious of his duty. He's always in love with the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa, and his love is without adulteration.
He's what?
Without adulteration.
His love, servitor.
Yes.
His love is without adulteration.
Yeah. What that means? Can there be a love which is adulterated?
Yeah. There can be love that's adulterated, and that's why there can be unadulterated love. You say what it means.
Well, Anyabilashita Shunyam, I guess, but
just say what it feels like.
Oh, the adulterated love?
Unadulterated love.
Unadulterated love. Well, it's unconditional and it's full-hearted, given. I just couldn't figure out what would be adulterated. That won't be real love then.
What adulterated love would look like?
Yeah.
Well, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says in the Brahma Samhita, he said if you have mixed devotion, there's pure devotion, because mixed devotion means there's pure devotion with something mixed in. So he says you do have pure devotion, it's just mixed. Which is really more accurate, because the fact is that we're pure conscious spirit souls, and it's our nature to love Krishna. It's just temporarily adulterated because of our abhiniveshita, absorption in matter. But once we realize what our real self-interest is, and we have the feeling of sincerity, which comes with a sense of Krishna, I don't want anything else. No other thing. I only want you. I only want to do what you say. I only want to surrender. Like Prabhupada would say, Krishna, everything for you, nothing for me. Unadulterated. And that's just, it's a simple thing. And it's the natural conclusion of purification to come to that understanding. It's reality. That I have no separate interest from the Lord, because we're part of the Lord, so how could we have a separate interest? Then it becomes dvitiya. But it's sincerity. No other thing mixed in. Just all I want to do is, as it was mentioned before, only want to do what your desire is. Anything from the outside people's party? Yes, Nirakula.
I just wanted to touch on what you touched on about Srila Prabhupada's servants. Prabhupada's pure devotee, transcendental, and we're conditioned souls. Prabhupada was 69 or 70 when he started his world tours and the movement, and we were so young. We had no conception of jet lag or anything like that. Prabhupada would get off a plane after a long flight and just get right into the program. He would do the morning program, or he would do whatever was going on. He would meet with, dignitaries and professors and things like that. And it wasn't a kind of a job like a servant, like, you know, you start at 4 a.m. and you're off at 10. It was 24/7. And these devotees were very sincere in doing their very best. But Srila Prabhupada didn't even sleep through the night. So we travel, and we get it now. It's how hard it is to just jump right into a schedule, full schedule. And Prabhupada was always dealing with problems and things like that. So they did the best they could, and they did a great service.
Dealing with problems is more difficult than jet lag. Right, Prabhu? Temple president. Or zone supervisor. It's, yeah, just the unending problems, which is what management's all about. Who else? Yadutama.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
There's so many wonderful realizations I'm having listening to these intimate dealings with the Lord and His devotees. There's just so much I want to share, but one thing that's in my mind more vividly than anything is that from I believe Mathura Prabhu in the room about not wanting to be mixed, and I think it matches so nicely with what Mahindra Prabhu was just getting at about not being adulterated. And I had this really clear vision in my mind of what it means if you have two liquids together, right, and you mix them up, like this mixing, they become homogeneous, right? They take each other's qualities, right? And I was just thinking about when we're constantly engaged in bhakti, this sagunyam samatityatam brahmabhuyaya kalpate, as Krishna says at the end of the 14th chapter of the Gita, that we rise above the modes, and it's almost an automatic thing. We become, you know how you have oil doesn't mix with water, it's hydrophobic. The same thing is that we don't mix with the gunas when we're constantly 24 hours engaged in devotional service, in the association of devotees and like minds. And it's just such a powerful thing. And it seems almost unattainable, but at the same time, something magical happens when we just put our efforts in trying to, as you say, keep the vibration going, stay with devotees. It's just something that's automatic that happens. You automatically, I don't remember the exact translation of the 1426, but it's almost like an automatic thing that happens. It's not something that even, you don't have to endeavor to rise above the boats. You just have to endeavor to stay in the association of devotees and endeavor to keep the vibration going. And I thought that was a really, really powerful moment.
Now, Yadutama, we all know you're a great cook, but are you also a chemist? I mean, they're practically synonymous, but did you study chemistry also?
I have many scientists in my family, so I think it's permeated me a little bit.
He can't help it. He's naturally artistic, and his aesthetic comes out in his speech, his cooking, everything. Thanks, Yadutama.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nicely said too. Thank you for sharing. Okay, who's next?
Hi, Krishna Gurudev.
You came back.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. We were reading about how Gadadhar Pandit broke his vow to associate more with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And on our level, I'm a very young practitioner still in the movement, and I was thinking I have struggled a lot sometimes to serve in separation. And sometimes I'm aware that service will bring me closer to Krishna, but my desire is to jump at the first chance to associate, even if I have to give up service. So I just wanted to ask, how do you differentiate and decide when that separation is necessary for your service and growth, and when you should leave it and take the chance to be in the association instead?
What a great question. What I've noted is some people are more oriented towards Vāṇī and some are more oriented towards Vapu, naturally. I saw it, and I've seen it in God Brothers, And others have observed it also, and partly situationally. Brahmananda, for instance, and others were so, of course, they were there as the situation unfolded with Prabhupada, but when he left, if you tell them, we'll just take shelter of Vāṇī, it's almost like when Krishna told the Gopis, just meditate. They couldn't grab that, because they were just so dependent on Prabhupada's personal presence in their life. And there are some that are more, it seems to me, more inclined to that. And then, of course, to your question, it's a matter of realization, because when we're serving, then by intense service, we can end, while we're serving intensely, and we feel the reciprocation of our spiritual master and Krishna from within, then we may have a taste to do that more. That's kind of one of the most obvious statements anybody ever made, but that's what happens. And I remember circa 1975 in Mayapur, when Rohini, Nandana, and who was the other one? They were they were two distributors. Rohini Sutta and Manidhar, who were prolific in book distribution, and I think it was Rohini Sutta didn't come. Maybe both of them didn't come to the festival. Prabhupada asked where they were, and they said they wanted to stay and do more. And Prabhupada approved of it, even though he had told everybody he wanted everyone to come to Mayapur and Vṛindavana, because he understood that they had a taste and they wanted to do it. So it's based on our own personal taste and realization. I never got very much personal association with Prabhupada, but I do. And one of my realizations came the day that Prabhupada departed, and I was in New York City, and we means myself and my Sankirtan partner, Pragosh, not the GBC one, it's another one. The day Prabhupada left, we had come back to the temple. We practically stayed up all night chanting, and the next morning, with very little rest, he came to my room and he said, "This of all days we have to go out on do our service." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." And we packed up and went to the airport where we were distributing books. And I just remember the experience of thinking, well, Prabhupada's gone. But when I stepped onto the floor, the segment where I would do my book distribution every day, when my foot touched the floor, I had this visceral experience that now I'll never be separated because I have my service. And so that visceral experience must be there at some point in order to relish service and separation. That, okay, I'm connected. By the same token, you can have the Vapu, and your mind can be somewhere else. Prabhupada had not plenty, but there are some experiences where people came to serve and they were very close, but then they were distracted. They wanted to be somewhere else. And so either way, the main point is to be absorbed in service. Hope that helped to some degree. Okay. Who is that? Vaishnavi? And Mukharavind. And we're getting close to the bell ringing, so.
Hare Krishna. On verse 1646, you noted that it's everyone has a particular service about Vāṇīnath Rai and Kashi Mishra when they brought large quantities of prasadam. I was just reflecting on our previous verse, which said that chanting the holy names of the Lord precedes and follows devotional service. And I remember my sister once telling me, I'm not sure who she heard from, that when we are about to leave our bodies, or in old age when we're not able to do the service, it's not our title or our the service that we do, it will carry us, but then the holy name, taking shelter of the holy name, going deeper is what is going to sustain us. And that's the only thing we'll have remaining when we on our deathbed, that deeper, that inner attachment to Krishna. And just on that point you were mentioning before with the previous question, I was reminded also Devamrita Swami mentions that the only exchange he had with Prabhupada was when he was doing the typewriting and all that work. Then Prabhupada just went, That was the only exchange he had with Prabhupada. And like yourself, he's a very powerful preacher in the Krishna consciousness movement. Thank you.
Thank you. We have hopefully a little opportunity to practice being ready. Antim Narayana Smriti. And Vayurani Lamamritam Atedam Bashmantam Sharyam Om Kratos Smara Kritam Smara Kratos Smara Kritam Smara. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. And Prabhupada begins his purport by saying, hey, yeah, you don't have to remind him. He knows. And in fact, near the end of that, it's mantra 17, purport. Prabhupada said, even if the devotee doesn't remember the Lord, because of his dedication throughout his life, then the Lord will remember the devotee and make sure that he remembers him at the end. And that's the spirit of the 8th chapter of the Gita too, because there's various ways in which Krishna mentions how yogis prepare themselves to leave in an auspicious time. Krishna says, don't even worry about it. That for the devotee, it's not a concern. Whether, and Prabhupada writes in his purport there, if it's by accident or in an inconvenient place, it doesn't matter, because Krishna is indebted to his devotees for their service, and he'll make sure that they come with him. Mukharavind.
Guru Maharaj, thank you for sharing that answer of your service in New York with your godbrother. It was so inspiring. I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate that. And in the verse number 11, there is a Bhakta Iksha Vina Prabhu Na Kare Gaman. So it says, like, although the Lord is completely independent and no one can check him, he still did not go without the permission of the devotee. So that was such a glorious of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's showing that. But on the other hand, we also see that in the following verses, we see that Ramanandra and Savam Bhattacharya, they are kind of, I don't know if I can use the word tricking him to stay for longer time. So my question is that what is the right attitude we should have for our senior spiritual master, or where we have to draw a line that we won't let the senior devotee or spiritual master do what they want to do, what make them to do happy, and versus what we want. So
you use the metaphor, where's the line? Is that what you said? How to draw the line? Well, it's dynamic. It's not a line necessarily that you can say this is by definition where you would. It has to do with loving dealings. And in those, it's moment to moment. And the main point is that if you really love somebody and you're attached to them, then if you express yourself in a certain way, even if it's slightly wrong or inconvenient, it's not taken as an offense or as an inconvenience, because it's love. And when love means there's intimacy, and that you take chances. If you're not willing to take chances at doing the wrong thing, then it's Aishwarya, because that's the line where, like, I'm not crossing that for anything. But the more intimate the loving exchange is, the more there's a chance that one would play a trick for the sake of, let us serve, we want to serve you more, we want to be with you more, and so forth. And that's understandable when it's the motive that counts. So if you check your motive and make sure that you're doing it out of a sense of love. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's not very clear. Okay, dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radhesham, if you so desire, please give us sincerity of prayer for unalloyed devotional service as our main objective in life. Please let us feel the presence of our spiritual masters in service. And please keep us together in service, hearing and chanting and distributing, expanding the Sankirtan movement together. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. For Brahmananda, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalpataruscha kripasnavesha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll take it up. We'll take the reading up again at 3:59. We'll see you back. Have a great lunch. Hare Krishna.